webinar, or if you haven't been able to attend today, you can just go to the advisor support page on the Positive Solutions homepage on the extranet, and all of the webinars are recorded and on there. And also, if I can ask you all just to raise your hand, just to let me know that you can hear me clearly. And if there's any problems with the sound at all, if you can just pop that into the question box also. Okay, that's excellent. So we'll just get started. So I hope that you can all see my screen clearly. As you can see, I'm just on the Intrinsic Gateway homepage system. And what I'm going to do is go through a full financial planning fact find. So you would go into Workbench and start a new sales process. So what we're going to do is click on financial planning. And this encompasses all areas of financial planning. So if you are conducting a mortgage review, a protection review, you are able to use this as a fact find for all areas. Or you can go into those specific product types if it is just one mortgage that you're doing and you're not likely to see the client again and do any different types of business with them. So we're just going to put a new client in, so we're not going to use an existing client. So as you can see, our client, Tammy Tester, does not exist in the system. So we're just going to create Tammy Tester. And we're just going to put this through as a single client. And we'll just complete all of the mandatory fields. You can put in additional information if you think it's relevant to the case. As much information is obviously preferred, but you can just put the mandatory fields in if you want to get through the fact find quickly. We're just going to say that Tammy's the only person present. There's nobody else present at the interview. This is where you'd obviously complete if it was, say, a power of attorney case and you had a third party present, or if it was a vulnerable or elderly customer. And you would just pop the details of the third party into the notepad as well. So here you would just confirm that it's not a power of attorney case that we're looking at, and we have provided the SCDD, which is currently at version 4. And the date, I put today's date. And we'll put the fact find as today's date as well. So you would be able to backdate these if you've seen the client a couple of days ago, and you maybe completed a paper fact find and you're now transferring it onto the system, but you wouldn't be able to forward date anything on the fact find. You just complete, again, all the mandatory details, so the gender of the client, which is female, marital status, we'll say single, we'll put down that the client has no financial dependents, and that the client does not have an up-to-date will, so it just prompts this statement here just to explain the benefits of having a will in place. And again, the residential status, so we'll put owner-occupier. And for the contact details, you would need to put a mandatory of one contact information in for each client, ideally as much contact information as you can. In this case, we'll put a home number in, so we'll just put the advisor support team number in. As you can see, the home number then goes to mandatory, so if you click on home or mobile, it will then change the appropriate section to a mandatory section. So moving on, you would press set in the scope, and this will take us through to the scope wheel, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And here you've got 8 areas that you can review. So as this is a full financial planning fact find, you can choose specifically which area you want to look at, or you can do a full review. If you click on full review, obviously it will tick every area. So if you then say you want to take out the mortgages section, you would just click on mortgages and then move along to the red X. You would need to put a note as to why you're not looking to discuss mortgages at this stage. And the reason for that is obviously you've chosen a full financial planning fact find, yet we are taking off the separate areas that we're not looking to review. So it is mandatory that you just give a brief description as to why you're not looking to review those today. And then you would just work your way around the scope wheel, so just leaving ticked any of the areas that we're going to look at. So today, obviously, because we're going to be looking at investments only, I'm just going to get rid of the other areas. Okay, so as you can see, we've cancelled off all of the other 7 areas for the financial planning fact find, and we're only going to look at the investment side. Okay, so just moving on to our client's occupation and income details. I'm going to put that the client is employed and is due to retire at 68. And she does have an income, which is an employed income. And we'll put down a salary. So we'll say that she is a hairdresser. And she has a basic annual salary of 30,000. So again, if your clients get paid weekly or monthly, and it's easier, you can just put that in here and obviously choose which type of frequency the payment is. So in this case, we'll just put yearly. So just moving down, you can put in all of the employer's details if you want, but it's not a mandatory section. And if a client has another type of income, so if they have a second job, you can just click on the Add More button here. So if you just click on plus, it'll basically just allow you to add a second occupation just underneath here. So I'm just going to sort of take that off because we only have the one. And you can also duplicate this as well. So again, if you were happy to leave those details in there and you want to duplicate it across, you would just click here to copy it, and it will then basically show as 2 sections. So again, we just want to remove that because you've only got the one income for now. So that will just show here as the income is salary and it's £30,000 a year. She is a tax resident and tax domicile. She has no plans to change residency in the future, and her highest rate of tax is currently 20%. We'll put that she's not contracted into S2P. And again, if you have any notes or anything that's relevant to this particular page, you can make any notes here, and it will confirm when those notes were updated. Also, if you have any further notes to add about the case in general, you can just go up to the notepad at the top of the screen, enter any notes, and it will then show the date and time that the notes have been added. So as you can see, that will just show up under here. So for every time you add a note, it will just show up as a different section and the time that the note was added. Okay, so just back to the fact find. If we just move through the fact find, does the client have a mortgage? We'll say yes, and then we'll just input the mortgage details. So we'll say it's a sole mortgage, and it's with the Halifax, and it is her main residence, and she originally borrowed $120,000. And that was for her current mortgage, which is on a standard variable rate, and it's on a repayment basis with a £100,000 balance. And the monthly mortgage payment for that we'll say is £500, and there's no early repayment charge because it's just on the standard variable rate. Now this is where you put in if the client has any additional financial commitments, so if they've got an unsecured loan or any car finance, anything like that, you would just complete this in this separate section here, but in this case we'll just say no. And does the client have any assets? So we'll put yes in here. And by property and other assets, it is not asking you for savings or investments. So in here, although technically savings and investments are an asset, you would not put it in this section. You would purely put if the client has any property, so whether that's their main home or any buy-to-lets or any other particular assets. So for example, if they've got any cars, art, anything like that. So in this case, we'll just put our client's main property. And it's obviously a main residence, not business use. and the current value we'll see is 150,000. So again, you can just duplicate that across if you have any other assets that you'd like to add. So if there was a second property or if there was a business, you can put that on as well. And this is where you would add any savings and investment details. So in this case, we're just going to put some savings information in. So our client currently has a bank account, which is instant access, and we'll say that that's going to be with NatWest. She's not currently saving any regular savings into the bank account, and the current value we'll say is 30,000. That's not an estimated figure, so she has confirmed that that's how much is in, and we've seen evidence of that if she's managed to provide that. And the objective of this, if we just put for sort of ready cash, and then you can just pop some details in here as to the reason for that. So, for example, so we'll just put instant access cash that's been built up from income. You can elaborate on that. Any of these mandatory notes sections, this is the information that will be put across into the suitability letter. So you might want to elaborate on it a little bit during the fact find, or you might just want to put a brief description in so that you can elaborate on it further when we get to the suitability letter. So the term is irrelevant because it's an instant access account. Will this form part of the estate on first death? Yes, it will. So again, we'll just move along. And this is where you would put details of the client's monthly outgoings. Now you can do these two ways. You can either take these on a separate basis, so you could complete them all separately based on a bank statement if they've given you that, or you can just total them all up and just pop those in the other column at the bottom. As you can notice on here, it doesn't include the mortgage, and the mortgage has already been taken into account from the previous screen, so this is purely additional monthly outgoings, so just your general sort of utility bills, etc. So if we just say that she's spending about £1,000 a month, and then what we'll come up with is just the client's other information before it gives us a summary of what we've covered off. So we'll say that the client's in good health and she's a non-smoker. She does not anticipate any increases in income or decreases in income, and she's not likely to receive any capital sums in the next 5 years. And she's not used any CGT allowance this tax year. We'll put down as well that she's not concerned with the effects of inflation, and she's not anticipating any increases in expenditure. So that would be just if she's aware of any bills that are coming into force, or if she's expected to start, say, a new car finance or anything like that. Cancelled policies. So has the client cancelled, lapsed, surrendered, or paid up any policies in the last 6 months? So in this case we'll say no, because she doesn't currently have any investments and she hasn't cashed any in. And has the client invested into a cash or equity ISA during this tax year? So we'll say no. And does the client have any emergency funds? So we'll just put yes for this, because she has she's currently got 30,000 in an instant access bank account. So what we then clicked on there is the financial summary, and as you can see, if there's any areas that are missing, so if there's any information missing in any of the mandatory areas, it'll come up with an error, and you would just click on the mandatory part that's not completed, and then obviously go back. So before, when we duplicated the salary, obviously that still kept it in there, so what we're going to have to do is obviously delete that, so that it's shown that there's only one salary in there. So then you can just click forward straight away to the financial summary on the left-hand side, or you can just keep clicking next and it'll take you back to that summary page. So just to confirm with the client then, the mortgage payment is currently £500. The monthly outgoings are 1,000. her net monthly income is 1,961, so the system calculates that based on the salary that you put in. And that means her net disposable income is £461. If there's anything on here that looks a little bit odd, or if her net disposable income is extremely low or in a minus, you will need to make additional notes in here or double check that that information you've put in is correct. And this is just a summary of the net assets. So you've got the savings and investments, which are 30,000, the property, which is 150. She has no other assets, so total liabilities, which is the mortgage, which is 100,000, which means taking off the mortgage, she's got £80,000. So again, if there's anything there that looks incorrect, you can just amend that. So with regards to pension planning, we'll just say that the employer does offer a pension scheme, and we'll just put down that there's no matching contributions available and that the client hasn't joined the scheme as yet. So what they'll then ask you to do is just put some information in about the reasons why the client hasn't joined the pension scheme. So that could be another area, obviously, that you can address with the client. Okay, so now we're moving on to the investment needs analysis page. Now, this is where we're going to establish how much we're going to review with the client today. So what we're going to do with today's example is a £20,000 investment, and we're going to split that between an OEIC and an ISA for the new tax year. So we're going to do 11,880 in the ISA and 8,120 into the OEIC. So you do need to make sure that the section which says review amount has the amount that you're looking to review with the client. So in this case, it's currently shown as 0. So you would just click on the downward facing arrow and you would change that review amount to 20,000 or however much you're reviewing with the client. And then you would just scroll down the screen and complete the rest of the questions. So does the client require further advice on reviewing the underlying funds within their existing arrangements to ensure they still meet their needs and current attitude to risk? So in this case, that would be no, because the client doesn't have any existing funds. And does the client wish to receive further advice about reinvesting monies from their existing arrangements? So again, we'll say yes to that because the client is looking to review their existing arrangements. So what we're just going to have to complete now is obviously the source of wealth. So in this case, we're just going to put, obviously with there being new funds, we'll just put bank account. And you can just elaborate on this a bit further and just say savings from income. So are there potential penalties for any of the investments being considered for reinvestment? So we'd say no. And the objective of the investments. So in this case, we're going to be looking at, we'll put down growth because it is sort of, we're looking at tax efficiency for the ISA, but we're also looking at obviously the OEIC, which is not within a tax wrapper. So we'll just put growth in general. And then you would just give a brief description as to the reason for the objective for that investment. So we'll put the minimum term of the investment. With any asset-backed investments, we do recommend a minimum required term of 5 years. Obviously, each client is different, so it depends on the conversation you've had with the client and the reasons for the investment. In this case, we'll say that the client's looking to invest for a minimum term of 10 years. But as you're aware, obviously, with all sort of asset-backed investments, there's no sort of set times in particular unless you're looking at, say, a structured investment. So this is purely for discussion purposes only. We'll also say that there's no access to the capital required, because again, we wouldn't be recommending these type of investments if a client was looking to need the capital within instant access. And then we move on to the priorities and actions section. So as you can see here, it's only brought up the investments option, and the reason for that is on the scope wheel we only selected investments. If you just selected investments and say savings or at retirement or protection, they would all show up on this page, and what you would do is just move them into order of priority. So as we've only got the one, this is the most important area for the client. So you would just need to put a little bit of information in about why this is important for the client to review. And as you can see here, you've got just a breakdown box confirming the disposable monthly income, which is £461. The available monthly budget, which in this case we're just going to put a 0 because the client's not looking to save on a regular monthly basis. And the available lump sum budget, which is £20,000. And then following that, we'll just move on to the attitude to risk. And this will then bring you to the attitude to risk page, which I'm sure you've all seen. And this is where you would complete the attitude to risk profiler. So I'm just going to go into the attitude to risk profiler. We'll assume that the client is obviously with us right now and they've not done this previously. So I'm just going to complete these 12 questions. So once you've discussed the questions with the client and you've came up with an answer to each of the 12 questions, if there's any that are a little bit sort of inconsistent, the system will come up with a prompt just to say that some of the questions that the clients answered aren't really in line with some of the other questions that they've answered previously. So what that's basically asking you to do is just have a bit more of a conversation with the client just to confirm that that's definitely how they feel about that question. And if there's quite a few questions which have been answered with no strong opinion as well, we would recommend that you obviously put a bit more information in the notes section just to confirm the reason behind the client's answers there. So this came out as a balanced investor, and as you can see, it just gives a brief risk description of what a balanced investor looks like and the strategic asset allocation that we would apply to a balanced risk profile. So as you can see, there's 6 tabs along the left-hand side, and you can sort of click into these and then just discuss with the client. So if they feel that a balanced investor is maybe not as much risk as they like to take, then you can obviously just have a discussion with them about the different areas. You can then click on potential returns, and it will give you a breakdown of the potential loss and volatility versus the potential gain with each of those assets, the different attitude to risk profiles. And if the client has decided that the balanced investor is probably not as much risk as they'd like to take, and they would actually want to go for to be a moderate investor, you can just choose this at the bottom of the page here where it says client's chosen risk profile is different, and you would just select what they've discussed. Now again, as we're doing 2 separate pots, we're going to keep these at 2 moderate investor for both amounts. However, if you've got a client who's say investing 100,000 and they're doing an £11,880 ISA and the remaining money is going into an OEIC, they may want to take a higher level of risk with the ISA. So that's absolutely fine. You can just basically have the discussion with the client, and you can put them down as, say, a moderate investor for the OEIC and, say, a dynamic investor for the ISA. You would just need to make a note of that in the suitability letter, but you can, like I say, do different risk profiles for different pots of money. But in this case, we're going to keep it as a moderate investor, and we'll just save and print that. So you do need to remember to press save and print, and this will automatically transfer across to OfficeWeb. So you don't need to manually upload it once we go on OfficeWeb in a second and put through the documents. So as you can see, this just prints off sort of a copy of the attitude to risk profiler. So it's about 7 pages long, and you can just give a copy to the client, but that will automatically be kept on file there. So it's good for you to refer to in future reviews. So you would just close that. And then where it says here, client investment planning attitude to risk. So the overall attitude to risk, if we say is moderate, so we've decided that the client's going to go for a moderate attitude to risk. You would then just put a brief description in here as to your discussion, why the client feels they've gone from balanced to moderate, or why the client is happy to be at a moderate investor level. And you would just put a discussion in here with regards to capacity for loss, to show that the client is happy with the potential losses as well as the potential gains. And then moving on from here, you would go to design a solution. And as you can see here, you'll then come up to the recommendations page. So when you click on design a solution, that would generally be the time when you'd, if you're a whole of market advisor, you would go to de facto, which you would need to set up on a separate web page, because we don't have a direct link to de facto through the Workbench system. And you would complete your research from there, establish which product you're going to recommend, and then you would come back to the recommendations page here. So we'll assume that all of the research has been done, or we're going to pick a provider who's on the intrinsic panel, and we're going to go to add quote. So obviously we've got 2 different pots of money in this case, so what we're going to do is add 2 separate quotes. So we're just going to confirm the need area, which is investments, and first of all we're going to do the equity ISA, and the provider we're going to use is Sanlam. And because Sanlam are also on the panel, no further research is required, so you're not required to do a de facto research document. We would assume that Intrinsic have already done all of the relevant research, so we're happy for you to just go off on the panel, and then you don't need to provide anything extra to the document section. So the date of quote we'll do as today, and it's just the one applicant, no regular premium, single premium of 11,880. Life assured is Tammy Tester, and it is a lump sum investment. For the benefit one there, you would just pop lump sum investment. Now it's not a top-up policy, so you would obviously click top-up policy if you were just to add into an existing fund, and you are applying for the product. So you must remember to always press yes when it says, are you applying for this product? If you were to say no, then it'll basically stop the fact find here, so you won't be able to go any further. But we would assume that at this stage in the fact find that you would be applying for the product. Like I say, that this is just for fact find purposes. Now, just ignore the apply via extranet button. At the moment, that's not sort of linked to any external site, so we would ask you to provide to go to the provider directly to apply for the product. And this isn't like a bed and ISA case or anything, so you're not looking to do any replacements. So we'll just put the fund name in. We'll just put Sanlam, and it's 100% going into the Sanlam fund. Now, is the client opening a new wrap account? So that would be yes. And the provider is Sanlam. And in this case, they are opening a new tax wrapper, so again, we would say yes. So that's the ISA completed. Now, what we're going to do is add a second quote, which is for the OEIC. So you would just click here, which says copy, here to copy this row. And as you can see, the equity ISA has now been saved, and we're just moving on to the second element. So it's duplicated across the ISA. So what we're going to do is change that to an OEIC. We'll change the amount to 8,120. Everything else stays pretty much the same because we're not amending, we're not putting that in a different fund, we're just putting it in the same place. and this is a new product to be included in the wrap account. So again, that would be just under yes there. So moving on from that, you'll then go to the suitability report once you're happy that all of your funds have been added into there. So just to show you before I go into the suitability report that for however many funds that you've recommended to the client, they should obviously show under the quotes list here. So we've got the ISA here, and we've also got the OEIC and the providers Sanlam. However, if you were to go with a different provider, obviously that would show up under there. So that's just a good way that you can check that all of the quotes have been added correctly before you move on to the letter, because this will then drag through to the suitability letter. So if we just click on suitability letter, and this will then take us into the report writer. So the suitability letter will mostly be pre-populated based on the information that was put into the fact find. But as you can see in the document map on the top right-hand corner, there's quite a few areas that just need to be elaborated on. So all of the areas that are that require some amendments are in bold. So as you can see, there's quite a lot there that you need to go through with a full financial planning suitability report. So just to give you an example, see if you click on the personalised paragraph, it'll then take you down to paragraph list at the bottom, and you can either click on none, which is that you're not looking to do a personalised paragraph, or you could click on personalised opening paragraph, and then you would just click on here. Just click where it's highlighted personalised here, and then you can just type in anything that you want for the letter. And then once you're happy with your personalised paragraph, you would just click the green tick. However, if you just wanted to delete it, you would just click the X. You can obviously spell check it as well, just to make sure that that's okay. And as you can see, that'll be put into the letter, and it'll change colour. It'll just go into green just to show you where you've amended. If you just look along to the document map, you'll see that that personalised paragraph section has now gone into normal writing, so it's not bold anymore, which means that that's been completed. Once you work your way through all of the bold sections, and they're no longer bold, if you click on print preview just in the top left hand corner, as you can see, it currently says draft copy, and the reason for that is we haven't completed all of the sections in bold. But once you've completed those, this draft copy should disappear, and that's when the letter is completed to the point where you don't need to add any more mandatory parts, so anything else would just be free type. You can have a read through the letter and obviously just check that it's all covering off everything that you want to mention. So we'll just close that for now. And if there's anything on here that you've obviously, you think you've completed it all in bold and it's still showing up as draft copy, then anything in red will just outline that this also needs to be amended. So as you can see, you can just sort of click on it with the little hand icon and just sort of free type in here. And then if you just click the green tick, that'll just automatically go back into the letter. But you can go into the letter and obviously just amend it as and where you need to. So once you're happy with your letter, what we would ask you to do is just, there's a couple of things that you can do. So you can either just click the X at the top and that will automatically save it over to OfficeWeb. Or you can import this to Word if you want to save a copy on your desktop to maybe go back in and amend it at a later date. So if you haven't had time to complete the draft copy and you just want to save this to do it in your own time, if you just click on this Word icon at the top, as you can see, it'll then start up Word and you can just save that as normal. So you would just go to File and Save As, and then you can just save it onto your desktop. Okay, so we'll just close that down for now. So as we've closed that down, that will just automatically save into Officeweb for the level that we're at on that letter. So that's effectively the end of the Workbench fact find. Depending on whether or not the case needs to go to pre-approval would be at this stage whether or not you would create contract or if you would close and create contract. If the case needs to go to pre-approval for whatever reason, so if it was a replacement or if it was a pension transfer or an annuity, you would press create contract. So that effectively still leaves the fact find open for any amendments that might be needed. However, if it's a basic case like an ISA or an OEIC, which is what we've just done, we would press close and create contract. That effectively closes the fact find down and then takes us over into the Officeweb system. So what I'm going to do now is just pass you over to my colleague Andrea, who's a bit of an expert on Officeweb, and she'll be able to take you through the process following the Workbench system. Hello everybody, so it's Andrea White here from the Advisor Support Team. So following on from the demonstration that Sam's been leading through Workbench there, I'm just going to take you through your documents upload and setting your remuneration on your cases. So just to bring you through to the document store here on the left hand side, this is a section where you upload all your documentation to support the case. And Officeweb is used as sort of like a back office system helping support Workbench. So Workbench is where the full fact find and sales process is completed. And Officeweb is where you upload any documents or set your remuneration to support that particular case. Okay, so as we can see in the document store, it's created a sales process file for today's date under the client name. So that's automatically created for us. And as we can see, it's pulled through the suitability letter that Sam's completed in Workbench, and it's also pulled through the ATR profile for the client. As we open up those documents and we close them down, it's automatically pulled through for us. And if we do want to add any additional documents to the case, you simply scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on the Add icon here. And when you're ready, you can click on Browse, and you simply find the documents that you need from your client files or your desktop, wherever you save the documents to. Find the files, click on Open, and that file name would be input into this field here. You can add more if you wanted to, so if there's not enough space for you to add all your files, you can simply add more and keep attaching them and upload them all in bulk to the file. You can as well add zip files to Officeweb. You don't have to add them all individually, so if you can zip the file, you can add that to the system too, so you don't have to add them all individually. Once you're ready, you would simply click on Upload and you'd be presented with a progress bar, and it would tell you exactly how far you have to wait for that upload to take place. It's usually fairly quick, but it does depend on your internet connection there, wherever you're accessing this from. So we're going to select Cancel on this case. Before we set the remuneration on the two cases, we need to confirm how we verify the client ID. Okay, and to do that, you click on Client Details on the left-hand side, and you should be able to see a few fields marked in yellow here. So anything in yellow is mandatory, although it has pulled through most of the information from the Workbench sales process for us already. So we don't need to complete anything here. And if we just scroll through the tabs at the top, again, there's no mandatory fields on this tab, so we can move on. And then to admin details. And as you can see here, how is the ID verification stored is highlighted in yellow. So we're going to confirm that this is going to be electronic ID as we've completed URU for this particular client. And there should be nothing on the partner details either. So when we're ready, we can click on Save. And that just confirms that we verified the client details. So now we're ready to set the remuneration on the cases. We're going to click back onto Quotes List on the left-hand side. And you can see it's brought through the two quotes that we recommended for the client in Workbench. So it's brought through our OEIC and the ISA as well. So as we can see, the applied for field is set to yes, because we made sure that we selected applied for the products in Workbench as yes. at the moment the remuneration set is no. Okay? So if that is showing us no, it means that the case hasn't been submitted yet. So we just need to finalise the remuneration details, and that will submit the case for us. So we simply highlight the case that we want to set the remuneration on, and click on Set Remuneration at the bottom. And again, it pulls through some of the details from Workbench we've already entered. And again, we just need to enter any information that's highlighted in yellow. And we can see that it's pulled through the premium for us, the frequency is single as it's a lump sum, and it always defaults the status to pipeline. Again, if you've got the policy information to hand, we do recommend that you put that in just to ensure that we can match any fee or commission to you accurately. If you don't have it already, you can enter that at a later date. And we just simply need to go through the tabs at the top. So we're going to click on Administration next. And this is the commission or fee administration for the particular case. So if you're referring or have been referred the case by another advisor, you would simply click on Referred by AR and select the advisor name. Or if you've been referred the case by an introducer, you can apply an introducer split here. And we're going to leave this blank for the time being and move on to the Compliance tab. Execution only, we're going to select No. Replacement contract for this case is no. The advice was provided, we'll say face-to-face with this client, and we'll just pop in today's date here. And you must ensure that you always tick the Upload Documents icon there. And we're just going to move on to the Remuneration tab. And we're going to select Charge in this column and move on to the Fees tab. And we're going to say we are taking an amount from the current value of the product. And we're just going to pop in the value of the product, and we're saying that we're going to take a 3% charge of the value. And it calculates the amount here for us, and it's defaulted the payment date to today's date. So you can simply click on Save, and you'll be presented with a pop-up box that says that the policy is going to be used to facilitate the advisor charge. That's fine, so we're going to press OK. And fill in the template here. So again, we're going to pop in the invoice date as today's date. And the reason for fee, we're going to say the recommendation for the initial recommendation. And again, anything in mandatory is highlighted in yellow. And this is going to be an investment, and it will be VAT exempt. The type of service is going to be an initial one-off. And we're saying that we are independent. You would just change that as necessary. And the charge structure is part of the current value, and we're taking a 3% charge. Client contact paying is set to no, as the provider will be paying this charge. If you're receiving this charge directly from the client, that would be yes. Okay, so we're simply going to click on Save, and you can see it pops the initial fee amount in there. Okay, if you're receiving an ongoing as well, you would simply add this in the ongoing section. Just going to select Save here. And as you can see, it's put the policy into the policy list because that's now gone on pipeline. And if we move back to the quotes list, we can see the remuneration set for the OEIC is set to yes. Okay, so that case now has been submitted, and the fee has been set in place, ready to receive the fee from the provider. Okay, you simply follow the same process for the ISA, and once that remuneration set
is yes, that is also that case submitted as well. If you are doing 2 recommendations, 2 quotes, you need to ensure that you set remuneration on both cases. Okay, so I hope that's helped and provided you with some guidance regarding setting your fee and your remuneration. I'll just hand you back over to Sam just to finish off the webinar session.
Thanks very much for that, Andrea. That was really useful. I hope you've all found the webinar useful today and it's clarified some areas that you might be struggling with a little. What we're going to do now is move on to some questions. All of the webinars, like I mentioned earlier, are recorded and they will be on the Positive Solutions extranet page on the home page. If you just go to Advisor Support Team, and if you just click on webinars, everything that we've completed will be on there. So thank you very much for your time today, everybody, and we'll move on to some questions now.